total assignment fee, this was a wholesale, was 122,000.
Holy.
Yeah.
Holy.
But when you have a six-figure deal, you want to be precautious. Hey, let's spend a couple $1,000s just to make sure there's no issues.
And that was just your first deal.
You know, I think a lot of people are scared to invest in leads. They maybe look at the cost of the lead and they get, oh man, it's too expensive.
I guess we're over 200,000, right?
Probably bought maybe 10 leads with you guys, and out of that first 10 leads, I hit that big home run.
And this is Yuri again with iSpeedToLead, and I'm very excited to have Daniel today sharing some of his secrets and insights on how he's closing deals in one of the hardest areas to wholesale and invest in the United States of America. Daniel, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Excited to see you. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about yourself? How did your journey start? Where are you based? Where you try to close deals? And how did you find iSpeedToLead?
I'm based out in Orange County, and I've been in real estate for at least a few years now. So I mainly play in my backyard, which is kind of like the Inland Empire. So a lot of people call Inland Empire like Riverside County and San Bernardino County. So those are the two counties that I specifically do deals in, and I've been doing deals out here for the last few years. I've done other states before, but I just found it to be more profitable in my own backyard, and just being able to also have my team to sell our appointments and stuff like that makes it easier for us to kind of beat out some of the competition when they're doing all virtual.
This is great. So you mentioned you're based out of California. So for people who may be just starting, because I know a lot of people who are watching us maybe just at the beginning of their journey, and maybe they consider virtual wholesaling. What makes California is the hard state to wholesale, especially if you're virtual?
Yeah, you know, I've marketed in different states, and I definitely do agree that California is probably a little bit more tougher, considering, you know, the house prices are a little bit higher. People are a little bit more sophisticated here, right? But there's still a lot of distress here too, in a lot of pockets, right? People are jammed up, need cash quick, you know, especially right now with all the, you know, issues here in California we're having with the politics and all that stuff. People are trying to move out, and so I've been seeing that a lot. But, you know, the reality is like, you know, I've done deals in like Ohio where properties are worth, you know, 100 grand, 150 grand, right? And, you know, you can only make so much, you know, money on a property that's worth 100 and 150 grand, right? You know, might make 5, 10, 15 grand. It's kind of where I see the average in these smaller states. But in California, you know, although it might be a little bit tougher, when you do get that deal, they're usually bigger deals, right? So you're talking 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, you know, et cetera, right? So you're just more likely just get bigger home runs out here rather than just going to other markets where, yeah, you might be doing a bunch of deals, but they're like 5, 10, 15 grand, right? So that's kind of one of the things I like about California is you do less deals, but deal size are way bigger.
And that's another thing what I've heard. Yeah, like your conversion, so your closing ratio might be a little bit worse, but the assignment fees are definitely on the bigger side. Still pretty hard to wholesale virtually. I think you gotta be there probably in most cases to close deal. And even I know people who are local kind of sometimes struggle. That's why I'm actually so excited, you know, to talk to you today.
Yeah, we definitely do a lot of seller in-person appointments, right? Because, you know, you got a lot of competition on these leads, especially when they're Google leads, you know, they're filling out so many forms. If you're in front of their face and you show up to their house and you negotiate in person, you do beat out a lot of the competition, especially if you got 4 other people talking to them.
And what makes it different just for I know Jerry Norton talks about that, like he likes in-person appointments. What makes it so? What's the structure of your appointments? Let me ask you that. You're trying to book appointment. How does it typically go?
Yeah, I mean, what one of the biggest things we try to gauge is, like, you know, we don't go to every single lead, right? That would be very difficult to do, just be running around everywhere, especially because the eye is so big. You know, like sometimes it can take an hour and a half just to get to a property based off wherever you are. So we don't just go to every lead, but we try to gauge, right? So we have a conversation with the seller, we build rapport with them, right? We try to see kind of where they're at as far as the pricing goes too, right? Like, hey, if they're asked for a retail market value, then we obviously know it's, you know, we want to probably, you know, make the offer on the phone, kind of gauge where they're at, how far we are. But if we feel like the lead is we're pretty close to where we need to be at, or, you know, as far as pricing goes, and we're not too far off, right? And there's something there, Then a lot of times we'll say, hey, we'll try to book an appointment to go see the property, go meet the seller in person, and try to just get it signed right then and there before anyone else catches it. When you go in person, you tend to be able to negotiate better, right? And be able to kind of get the contract signed right then and there, rather than saying, oh, well, let me think about it, let me get back to you, blah, blah, and then they ghost you and then they're gone,
How do those interactions go? Because I'm more focused in my world, on virtual wholesaling, closing over the phone. But when you go in person, and I know you do multiple exit strategies too, but how does this conversation typically go? Like, hey, knock, knock, opens the door. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. And
No. So we set up the appointment. We set up
no,
the
I understand.
appointment.
But you come for appointment. Okay, so how does it typically go next? You do like the
Yeah,
overview of the house right away, or
yeah, that's typically how it goes, right? So we'll set up an appointment. We'll tell the seller, hey, we'd like to walk the property. We want to get you the best offer as possible, but in order to do that, we want to be able to see the property, kind of see, what kind of repairs it needs, right? We want to make sure that we, get you the best offer based on the condition. And more than times, they're more than happy to have you come there and look at it. Sometimes they're out of state or they're out of town, so we're not able to do it in person. But if it's owner occupied, it's usually easier. And then typically what we do is we walk the property with them, right? We'll sometimes pinpoint certain problems, right? Just this, that, and then from there, we usually sit down with them and we try to like figure out, okay, what's your bottom line price? What are you looking to get, right? Also, it gives us the ability to build rapport a lot better. And when we build rapport better, the negotiation just becomes way easier in person rather than over the phone.
any tips or hints to know how to build rapport? Because I know different people use different things.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that we do, that's kind of pretty much everything almost everyone does, is we usually first call, right? We like to find some type of common ground, type of commonality, right? We like to pay attention to the type of seller we're dealing with, right? Are they a red, blue? What's their personality type, right? If they're a slow talker, we usually talk slow. If they're a fast talker, we talk fast. There's like a saying, slow talkers don't like fast talkers don't like slow talkers. So really the first 2-3 minutes of the phone call is really important, where we like to build that commonality, gauge their personality type, and then mirror match them as much as possible. And just to know a little bit more about the property, and then from there we kind of get into numbers and negotiations, things like that. And then if we have to set up an in-person appointment, we'll do that as well.
I wanted to start with that, but I didn't ask, so I'll ask to clarify again. Do you remember how did your journey start in real estate? How did you start with that?
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. I think it was just as simple as, someone that was just trying to make some money, right? And I didn't know anything about real estate, and I stumbled upon wholesaling, which was a way to, get into real estate with no money down, right? So it was almost the same story as almost everybody, right? And then after some Googling and YouTubing, right, and starting, getting on an auto dialer, started cold calling. And then it took me about 9 months to actually get my first deal, just because I didn't have the right guidance. So I was making a lot of mistakes. I wasn't knowing what I was doing. But about 9 months later, I closed I think it was a $15,000 deal. And from there, that was a great proof of concept for me, knowing that, hey, this actually works. And then from there, I just started doing more and more, started hiring VAs. And from there, just started seeing more consistency from there.
Awesome. And during those 9 months, what would you say were like top 3 mistakes that you did?
Probably a lot. Well, one, I didn't know how to properly build rapport with sellers, right? It was first time doing sales too, so I had no zero sales experience on top of that, right? So also, probably knowing how to negotiate, how to make the offer. I was making mistakes on making offers too, so not knowing how to like comp the properties correctly. So a lot of times I was locking up properties way too high, right? And trying to sell them, and obviously no one's going to buy that if you've got a bad deal. So it took some time to kind of like, get familiar with, how to like go over a lot of the common objections, right? Just through trial and error, and obviously going through YouTube and, learning different scripts and stuff like that.
Okay. And speaking of lead generation, so you did cold calling by yourself. It took you like 9 months to get the first deal, which you got. Good for you. So after that, you
Yeah.
starting hiring VAs. So how was that experience? What were maybe good things and maybe hard things like when you did this?
Yeah, I think with the VA stuff, it was I think when I first started hiring VAs, I think I hired one VA, right, starting out to start cold calling for me, because obviously with cold calling, you can get burnt out pretty easily if that's all you're doing. To generate one or two leads can take a whole, 6 to 8 hours, by yourself. So I quickly hired a VA, and I had a pretty good experience with the first VA I had. The turnover was always an issue for me. Constant turnovers and stuff like that was always an issue, especially in the beginning, right? But then I obviously got a little bit better at that over time, as far as knowing how to train them and knowing how to gauge whether or not they're the right people, and making sure I'm going through building the correct hiring process.
And how long did it take you like to start going to pay-per-lead direction? And when did you find iSpeedToLead on this journey?
Yeah, it wasn't until probably almost a year ago, I would say, that I actually stumbled upon going through the online lead source, which was actually through you guys, iSpeedToLead. I don't know exactly how I stumbled upon, but heard some people say some good things about your company and decided to try you guys out. And I started out really slow, it's very small budget, just trying to see, hey, buy leads here and there, nothing very consistent, right? But just started noticing that the leads were like definitely ready to move forward right away, right? And a lot more hotter, right? So started noticing that and started quickly closing deals with less amount of leads needed, right? So been doing that for a little bit now, and now I'm leaning towards putting more money towards iSpeedToLead and try to get more deals with you guys.
We appreciate your trust. So let's go into interesting thing. Do you remember the first deal you closed with us?
Yeah, the first deal was actually one of the biggest deals I've done. It was in a city called Palm Desert, California, and the total assignment fee, this was a wholesale, was 122,000.
Holy
Yeah.
moly. Okay.
Yeah, that was the first one with you guys, and I think I was probably bought maybe 10 leads with you guys, and out of that first 10 leads, I hit that big home run.
What was interesting or special about this lead that allowed you to get this much assignment fee?
Yeah, I don't think there was anything particularly special about this one. Obviously, the dollar amount was definitely special, but it was just a seller who lived in California for a while and wanted to move out of state. She was an elderly lady who needed to move back to, I think it was either Florida or somewhere in the East Coast. I don't exactly recall, but she was getting older. She was living by herself. All her son and daughter, they had moved out, and so she was like, "I want to move closer to family." And we simply asked her, "Hey, what are you looking to get?" And I think she was asking around like 400,000, and we negotiated a little bit lower, and I think we got it down to 390, and then we ended up selling that property for about 515,000.
And it was sold to cash buyer, correct? So cash buyer purchased it for...
Yeah, cash buy. Yeah, someone that was going to go and flip it and rehab it. The property was probably worth, I don't know the exact, but I think it was around 700,000 or so, 750 or so. It needed about 100 grand in work though, so like it wasn't entirely like an easy flip. Well, I wouldn't say easy flip, but it needed a lot of work, right? It was very outdated in that particular area. You needed to use luxury materials too, so it needed about, like, a lot of buyers put about 100 grand in there. And I got a lot of offers on it, and we ended up going with 515. And I think it was total was like one. I think we double closed on it, so it came out to 122.
Why did you double close on it?
Usually, I like to, if I have something really really big, I'll double close it. Just, I don't want to have buyers come back and say, hey, you're making too much money or whatever the case. But I've never had that issue. But when you have a 6-figure deal, you want to be precautious. Hey, let's spend a couple $1,000 just to make sure there's no issues.
And what's the typical process for that? Because I never closed a deal in my life, and maybe some people would want to know this too. So you basically like purchase by yourself, or no? How does that work?
This was a wholesale assignment, so essentially I didn't purchase it. I didn't take title on it. I simply locked it up for 390. Marketed out to a bunch of cash buyers that are investors that are looking to flip properties, and I had a bunch of offers come in around low 500s and or so, and the highest offer I got was 515 from one of our buyers. Property's worth 750, so whoever made this, after everything, they were going to make another $80,000 in the flip on their end.
Right, but for our watchers, so how is double close different from regular like wholesaling operation when the cash buyer can see for how much you're gonna sell it?
Every escrow company is different. Some escrow companies don't do it. Some title companies don't do it. The only difference is what you do is, instead of doing a purchase sale agreement, you do a purchase sale agreement with the seller, and then you do what's called another purchase agreement with the buyer, right? Instead of doing an assignment contract. And then typically some escrow companies will allow you to do what's called a double close, right? And you just have to request that on their end. And the only difference is when you do a double close, you get charged some closing costs as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's usually taken out of your assignment fee because they have to do what's called a double simultaneous close. So you get charged closing costs as well as the buyer, but it's not a lot. It might come out to $2,000 to $2,500. But if you got a big assignment fee and you feel like you got to do it, you want to make sure there's no issues that pop up later, then there you go. But I've done plenty of deals where it's not 100 grand deals, but plenty of big assignment fees where I have not done double close and been perfectly fine and never had issues.
No, this is great information. So for
Yeah.
anybody who's watching, we appreciate that. So and that was just your first deal, okay? So how did you feel about that?
Yeah, it was great. I was like, all right, well, we got to do more of these, and obviously that was, obviously with only spending maybe, I don't know exactly how much we spent, but probably spent $4,000 with you guys at the time to make 122,000. I was like, all right, well, there's something here, right? And so we're like, okay, well, let's put together a small budget and let's pour into iSpeedToLead and continue that. And then we ended up doing another deal about a month and a half later with you guys. That was a Novation deal, and that one was for 51,000.
That was my next question. So you do multiple exit strategies. So let's go in this path. You closed your first deal, you did wholesaling. The second deal was actual innovations. How did you get to that? Did you get trained? Did you think that I need to do? Did you already practice before, or how did this whole?
I've already been doing Novations for a little bit now, right? So
Okay.
we've already kind of got it down. We hired some mentors that kind of helped us, with the Novation process and how to make the offer and the whole process goes. So we've been doing it for a while. So it wasn't our first Novation deal. We've done a few prior to that. But here in California, I think for anyone that's in a competitive market, it's really important that you're not just relying on wholesale and that you have another exit strategy like a Novation, especially here in California, because if we weren't doing Novations, we would lose on about 50% of deals just because, with doing Novations, and especially in a competitive market like this, it's really important you have that. You won't get the same conversions.
So how do you structure your conversation? Like, when do you know when to pivot to innovations, and how do you do that? Do you do it like casually, and by the way, we will also list it, or you actually introduce it as concierge service, like to get more? When do you switch, and how do you do that?
We always start with the cash offer first, right? So we never go straight into a Novation. We always start with the normal cash offer, right? And the Novation process is more of just an alternative option for the seller if the cash offer is not a good fit for them, right? So, obviously if there's a seller that wants 500 grand, we need to be at 390 for cash. We know we're 110 grand off. We're still going to offer the 390, whatever the number is, right? But if the seller is like, hey, we're just way too far off, there's no way I'm going to take that, right? We'll do our best to try to negotiate down, but if we know we're way too off, that's when we're going to what's called a concierge offer, and we'll let the seller know, hey, we understand the cash offer is not a great fit for everybody, but we do have an alternative option that can get you close to what you're looking for, but it just have to be on terms, right? And so that's when we go in and we say, hey, we can get you about what you're looking for, or at least close to what you're looking for. And these are the terms, this is the process. You still get the same benefits of a cash offer, right? We still cover all your closing costs. There's no escrow fees, all that good stuff. We buy as is. The only difference is just a longer time or close. At least can get you more for the property.
When do you tell them that you will also, potentially like list it with agent or all that type of stuff, or you don't? How is that going?
We typically are very upfront about our process, right? And we let them know that, hey, we work with agents, we work with brokers, so we do use our own network of buyers to send it out to, but we also utilize the MLS and leverage the MLS as well.
Will it be part of the opening, or will it be like when you introduce innovations?
This is only when we introduce innovations. Yeah.
I got it. Okay. So you're gonna bring it up there. Okay. So you closed the second deal innovations with us. It was 50,000. So how many total deals you closed with us, and how much money did you make?
Keep in mind, we haven't spent an insane amount with you guys. I mean, we've been doing it pretty slow and gradual, but so far 8 deals with you guys, and the ROI has been amazing. From what we spent total and what we got out of those 8 deals have been, probably better ROI than our other marketing channels. So it's been really good, and we plan on continue to slowly increase that. So we've done 8 deals, and then we got another one closing in a couple weeks. That one's a little bit smaller. So that's the total amount of deals we've done with you guys.
So it was 100K, it was 50. What the other?
I don't know the exact amounts on the top of my head, but it was 122, it was 51.5, it was one for 18.5, one for 25,000, and then another one for 20, and then we have another one closing for 5 here in a couple weeks, and then we had another one for 10.
Okay, so I guess we're over 200,000, right?
Yeah,
For
about
sure.
220
220.
once
Okay.
we close out this last one. Yeah.
No, that's been awesome. So okay, I mean blitz round. First of all, what's your experience with the support team? Did you ask for some refunds? Were they responsive? Any?
Yeah, I mean, support team is awesome. So, obviously every once in a while we'll have some bad leads that come in, right? And that's just, that's just part of the business, right? And so when we have that every week, we'll go through that. We'll send out a support ticket for that. And I know with you guys typically do the whole review and process. And yeah, I mean, for you guys, it's fairly simple. I mean, we put the request in, submit it, and then a couple days go by, and you guys let us know, hey, we went ahead and credited you back, and that's pretty much it. I have no issues with the support team. If there's any questions I have, I know you guys have a live phone call, and I can just quickly pick up the phone and call you guys.
What would be your top 3 advice, for maybe new investors who just start?
Well, I think one is don't be afraid to invest, right? I think a lot of people are scared to invest in leads, right? Especially, and they maybe look at the cost of the lead and they get, oh man, it's too expensive, right? And I think the most important thing is be consistent on your marketing, right? I think a lot of people they're not as consistent and they don't want to spend the money, and so get rid of that scarcity mindset. Whatever that thing in your head that's telling you, hey, it's not going to work, you just got to tell it to shut up and just keep moving forward. And you will get deals, right? And so I think consistency in your marketing, and then also just consistency overall in the business as well, right? Making sure you're making the calls, making sure when the lead comes in, you're on top of it right away, right? Especially with a lot of these inbound leads, right? You've got to be, these guys are ready to go, right? And so you don't want to wait 2-3 days later to call them, or wait hours to call them, right? You want to call them within the first 5 to 10 minutes at least.
This is awesome. And you mentioned that I didn't ask, so I was just curious, and it'll be like last question for today. So you mentioned you tried to do Ohio. First of all, why did you try Ohio? And the second question is, do you consider to expand anytime soon? Like, do you want to maybe, try to get into LA, into maybe some other counties, or you prefer to stick where you are? What's the plan for the future?
I think our plan is more. I think we're doing a lot of deals here, and I think that we have more ability to just continue to go deeper into our market, because there's just a lot of opportunity here, right? And more ad spend, and more spend we can do and get more deals here. So I think the opportunity is still out there to get more deals, but I definitely want to go more, spread out a little bit more in Southern California. So you got LA, you got San Diego County. You got some parts of Orange County that are good, and then you got a little bit closer up north, Sacramento as well. So there's a lot of opportunities in those. So plan is hopefully to kind of expand that out. So that's where I'm at. I don't see myself going to other states anytime soon, unless California falls off the map or something. But Ohio, I did a couple deals in Ohio, but I think they were like really small assignment fees, and it was just like, hey, we're doing all this work. The sales process is all the same across every single state, no matter where, right? Whether you're calling the lead in Ohio or Texas or California, sales process is the same. You got a guy that's looking to sell their property. It's the same process, right? So I'd rather put my time, energy, and focus into an area that's going to make me an average assignment fee of $30,000 to $40,000, rather than an area where I might be doing more volume, but they're only like 5, 10, 12 grand deals, right? That's where from my personal experience, what my average was out there when I did a few deals there. So I just feel like my time and energy makes more sense to be in California.
And this is it, guys. Daniel, it was really nice to see you. We're looking forward for you to close more deals with us, and it's been exciting. I mean, glad to.
Thank you so much. And, thank you.